And joining us now is our baseball guru, Richard Oliver, who is here to break down all things Astros, not only tonight, but throughout the year. And Richard, Charlie Morton was absolutely fantastic today. Boy, on a team that has Verlander, Keuchel, Cole, and even McCullers, it's Charlie Morton who's doing all these great things.
You know, you got Colin McHugh in the bullpen and Brad Peacock in the bullpen. You know, the Astros, we've seen them be a little mercurial to start the season. The hitting hasn't been there in so many stretches so far, but man, that pitching, we're talking 90s Braves pitching, you know, as good as these guys are right now. You mentioned Charlie Morton. You know, you could talk about Verlander, you could talk about all the different guys in that starting rotation, how great they are. But Hector, Charlie Morton right now is a Cy Young candidate. 10% through the season, of course.
And I like what I know, right, 10%, the qualifier. And I like what you said before, you know, during the break. You kind of mentioned Charlie Morton. Something happened coming out of that World Series. Yep. He's just a different guy right now.
He really is. I mean, Charlie Morton, you know, if you pitch the last 4 innings of a Game 7 in the World Series and you pitch it the way he did, he came into this season with such confidence. And, you know, that's always been the story. And you've talked about it. We talked about it at West Palm Beach. Charlie Morton needed that little jolt of confidence to bring him to someplace special. He's there now. You know, he really feels like, listen, I belong at this level. I could do this. We've talked to so many people who knew him in the past when he didn't quite feel that way. Charlie Morton right now, the ace of the Astros pitching staff.
Let's talk about the offense now, Rich, because I think everybody assumes, and it's probably a pretty good assumption, that they're going to be fine eventually offensively. But considering some of the struggles, some individual struggles as well, I want to get your take on where the offense is right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's some guys that they're going to have to get some work out of that they're not getting a whole lot out of right now. One of them, Jake Marisnick, 12 strikeouts over his last 4 games, 12. For him, that's really something. He's a contact hitter. That's a tough thing to watch. Alex Bregman, another slow start for him. But remember that he's done that a couple of times in his career, early in his career, and he is early, and he has come on strong as he's kind of found his rhythm. That's a guy that will do that. And it's funny, I've been kind of talking to everybody, boy, Jose Altuve just doesn't seem all that good. And then you turn around, he's hitting 320, and you're saying, oh, wait a minute, he's okay. You'll see Springer, those kind of things are happening, but you know what, as we saw last year, the Astros will have stretches even in the postseason, and then they catch fire, and all of a sudden, they're a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, you mentioned Altuve. He had the big hit today, a base-clearing double when it was 1-0 early in that game today in Seattle that eventually made it 4-0 for the Astros. Now, that 3-game losing streak that they came off of before, you know, they kind of turned things around with those 2 wins in Seattle, and then today, that 3-game losing streak, Richard, because it's the Astros, do you look at that and go, uh-oh, or is that just simply part of the game? It's going to happen in a long season.
And remember last year, it happened. The Astros had that awful stretch during August when things just didn't go very well. They weren't hitting very well. Again, kind of looks familiar to what was happening here, and they blew a lot of games late. That was happening just recently for the Astros, and then they're going to come on. I mean, they played very well since then. I think they found their footing. There was no panic. You know, A.J. Hinch said, no panic in this locker room. Everyone feels really good about who they are, what they're going to be as the season moves on. And again, we go back to the fact, listen, if the Astros are going to struggle a little bit offensively, if they're going to try to be a little erratic at the plate, do it now. You know, kind of find your footing. They're still hung over in the sense that it's a World Series victory. They came out of that. We saw the Indians do it. We saw the Cubs do it. We saw all these teams that have reached the World Series come back the next year and have some struggles. And I think that's one of those things where the Astros kind of had to kind of get their bearings back and say, wait a minute, we got to play this season. We got to play some baseball and do it. I think we've seen that more recently than, of course, during that 3-game losing streak.
And the best thing about what you just said right now, if you're an Astros fan, is the struggles. They're still off to a pretty darn good start. I mean, it's so good that they lose 3 in a row, and everybody's asking, wait a minute, what's going on? Well, as we mentioned, it's a long season. Those types of things are going to happen. Richard, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. We're going to see you again next week to help us break down what's happened between now and when we meet again next week right here on Sports Tonight. Richard, we appreciate the time.
No, my pleasure.
You're watching Sports Tonight, San Antonio's only nightly 30-minute sportscast with exclusive sports coverage you won't find anywhere else.